Dinotopia is a formative series about a land apart from time where dinosaurs and humans live in harmony. It's been adapted into a miniseries and a cartoon and a bunch of little paperbacks which define my childhood and a couple of video games, one of which is a full motion video game with puppets.
Trust me, you will love this game.
Who did this? Why does it exist? And is it good? This 1996 adventure game was so lost to the sands of time that I didn't even know it existed. But today, I'm going to disinter it, give it a good autopsy, and tell you why it's my new obsession. But first, you have to know something about the wasteland that is dinosaur games. Games about dinosaurs. Dino games. Dino gaming. The 90s were a golden age of dinosaur media. I was born in 1990, so I've been indoctrinated to love dinosaurs all of my cursed life. And that's why, as an adult, I've been really disappointed with dinosaur games. You have series like Turok, where you kill dinosaurs. Games like Second Extinction, where you kill dinosaurs. And games like Primal Carnage Extinction, where you kill dinosaurs. I'm bored. I didn't grow up loving these amazing creatures just so I could turn them into the Cretaceous equivalent of a rhino mounted on Ernest Hemingway's wall. Now, there are some games that have done dinosaurs with less or different killing. Jurassic World Evolution is a park sim, which is such a good take on this whole franchise because we all know we can do a better job than this guy.
I guarantee it.
And 2020's Parkasaurus is the cute, colorful version of a dino park sim, one where the dinosaurs can wear little hats. It's impeccable design. Ark Survival Evolved does require dino killing, but only because you're trying to develop technology so that you can tame and ride the dinosaurs. Yes! 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 That being said, in all of these games, dinosaurs are just dumb animals who can either be killed, caged, or tamed. But if you watched or read Dinotopia, you know there's a different way. A magical world of adventure where dinosaurs are your friends. The first glossy, enormous illustrated Dinotopia book was published in 1992, just in time for me to become literate and obsessed. It's about a lost continent where dinosaurs and humans have formed a peaceful society. In Dinotopia, the two species are equals. Dinosaurs can read and do science, and some can even speak human languages. The series is special because writer and illustrator James Gurney puts in a nutty amount of world building. For every pastoral image of a human riding a dinosaur, Gurney says, "Here, have a cross-section of a city built from the wreck of a 17th century ship." And I say, thank you, Mr. Gurney. You are the architect of my childhood. These books were such fodder for my imagination. They show you how everything works in this fantastical world and invite the question, what would you do if you were in Dinotopia? Would you work in a hatchery, become a Skybax rider and deliver messages? Would you even just pick up dinosaur poop? Because all of these options are valid. It's always been a given to me that Dinotopia is a fun setting for a game. But there's one maybe roadblock. It's a pacifist utopia where violence is unthinkable. And that's, I guess, why two of the biggest Dinotopia games are about fighting people. When the Dinotopia Mentos hit the video game Diet Coke, some dark alchemy happens. Like the ghost of marketing past comes down and says,
"Listen, bud, this is a video game. It's about dinosaurs, and both of those things are for boys, so shouldn't we get some combat in there?"
In 2002, French developer RFX Interactive took a crack at the license. RFX had just made the bizarre and incredible-looking Dinosaurus, a Game Boy Advance game where you play as a baby dinosaur, doing platforming sequences, just trying to get by, and then fighting turn-based battles against other dinosaurs like it's freaking Pokemon. That same platforming gameplay shows up in Dinotopia: The Timestone Pirates. You play as Clayton, not that one, a Dinotopian who gets a Sunstone prod, okay, and has to beat up a ton of pirates who are stealing T-Rex eggs. It's a punishing platformer and perfectly fine, with admittedly beautiful art. And it makes a little more sense than what happened in 2003, when developer Vicious Cycle was tapped to work on the IP and turned out Dinotopia: The Sunstone Odyssey. A game where you can beat up dudes and dinosaurs with a mallet as long as you are a guardian of Dinotopia, a made-up job that means you can do violence as long as you're protecting Dinotopians.
Only use that weapon as a guardian of Dinotopia would.
It's incredibly jarring for me, narratively, and for many reviewers, it was jarringly repetitive. Both of these games are hamstrung by combat-focused mechanics. Neither one really feels like Dinotopia, and neither one pushes against the expectations set out by other dinosaur games, where, again, you're just killing stuff the whole time. So it was with low expectations that I cracked open Dinotopia, the 1996 adventure game. It opens with this lovely painting of Waterfall City, and I was like, heck yeah, okay, that's what Dinotopia looks like to me, good start. And then this guy started talking to me. And then this dinosaur started talking to me, and I realized this was a freaking FMV, and it had animatronic dinosaur puppets. And my life has not been the same since. Dinotopia, the game, stars a guy with the unlikely name of Nathan Drake. Not that one. Nathan Drake is newly shipwrecked on Dinotopia and looking for his missing sister Constance. Along the way, he solves puzzles and interacts with iconic book characters, all played by real people who look eerily like their illustrated counterparts. I couldn't believe that A, this game existed, and B, I had never heard of it before. So I reached out to who else but James Gurney himself to see if he remembered anything about the game.
In those days, every publisher felt they had to have an interactive department for making these CD-ROM versions of books. This was cutting edge at the time.
Said publisher, Turner Interactive, brought on developer co-op The Dreamers Guild to make the game. The Dreamers Guild was an employee-driven business, with the developers themselves weighing in on what projects to take next. And they had just done a book-to-game adaptation. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the horrifying Harlan Ellison short story, which you might recognize as frickin' dark and not for kids. But that adaptation was well received, and if you're an employee-run business, you can decide to pivot from Hugo Award-winning sci-fi shorts to children's puzzle adventure games. But the Dreamers Guild wouldn't be handling the game's cutscenes. Turner Interactive made the incredibly big brain decision to film the cutscenes with real actors and dinosaurs played by animatronic puppets whose voice actors perform as if they are doing callbacks for the Jim Henson Company.
I no can live that way. I here on planet to speak true.
Holy The resulting game is appropriately delightful and weird. When you first get to the island, everyone is speaking gibberish, which I thought was just a funky choice, until you meet this old woman and she gives you a Dinotopian alphabet book, and suddenly...
Now, it may be a bit childish for you, young man, but it is a good way to study the ABCs.
Later, you use the same alphabet book to decode puzzles. There's also this delightful music puzzle where you have to play back the notes that a Parasaurolophus sings to you.
Bum, 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 bum.
And then the song that you make plays in the city. These puzzles are creative and fun and coherent with the setting. Notably, they also don't involve mash A to hit. And then there are moments that don't quite hit the mark, like this one where you just have to throw yourself off a cliff over and over and hope that you land on the skybacks. Not so intuitive. Also, everyone knows it takes much more training to bond with the skybacks. Haha! Am I right? Anyway, the gameplay graphics are very of their time. But then you have the game's cutscenes, which are, just like Gurney said, cutting edge. Andre Freitas and his special effects company, AFX Studios, made 10 dinosaur puppets for the game, all with hand-painted latex skins and complex animatronics. Each one had to be piloted by multiple puppeteers, some working eyelids on radio controls, others using rods to maneuver the puppets' massive heads. Freitas said Turner only gave him $85,000 for the project, which breaks down to not nearly enough per puppet. Freitas' work is amazing and goes a long way to making this game look like Dinotopia, even though the later games have better graphics. Freitas also did the makeup on the actors, translating Gurney's painting style onto a human canvas. This would end up being the first time Dinotopia was put on film, but what Gurney's publishers initially envisioned for a Dinotopia adaptation was an Oscar-studded masterwork.
A memo from 1995 from TNT suggests any of the following actors would do a good job with it: Lloyd Bridges, Dick Van Dyke, Tony Randall, Charlton Heston, Robert Mitchum, Alan King, Dean Martin, and the list goes on and on. They suggested anyone from Ray Charles to Ben Vereen, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They suggested James Earl Jones, Billy D. Williams. So they had grand ambitions for this game.
Even though legendary actor Robert Mitchum did not star in Dinotopia a year before his death, the fact that this is an FMV game at all showcases Turner's ambition. FMVs were the hot stuff of the era. People saw them as the next evolution of video games, because what could be better than moving from these silly, childish computer graphics to real people acting in real scenes? It was expensive to do, and the history of FMVs is laced with million-dollar flops, as people gradually realized that static video couldn't provide the same reactivity as an animated game. But for this game, it works! The mix of FMV and puzzles doesn't hinder the player, and the video footage adds in the life and color that the books have and that the overworld gameplay lacks. And with my 20-year vantage point on it, I think it's actually really charming when there are scenes where the dinosaur and the human are so obviously shot separately and their dialogue kind of overlaps.
But your skills as a librarian are positively prehistoric.
Well, I will see to it that they are put properly away.
It warms my heart. Anyway, this just underscores what a weird time it was for this game to come out, because everything kind of fell apart right after that. The Dreamers Guild rushed out one more game, Halls of the Dead Fairy Tale Adventure 2, and then went bankrupt. Another thing that went bankrupt was the concept of FMV games. They totally fell out of favor as 3D graphics became more readily available. What's more, I can't find any record of later Turner Interactive games either. Dinotopia was well received as the children's puzzle game it is, and then... But when it comes to Dinotopia games, and dinosaur games in general, it is frankly the boldest and the best of them. It used cutting-edge technology, it didn't shoehorn combat into a utopian setting, and it showed a new way forward where puppets are in video games, and only Remedy Entertainment has been brave enough to take up that mantle. It's the kind of weird little artifact that could only have existed in the 90s, when big budget and art project collided.
I'm glad to see that people are interested in it again. It was a stage in the development of video games fairly early on, and no one knew where video games would bring us now, but the same basic principles applied then as now, of having a world that's fun to explore, that's sort of open-ended feeling, and where you find interesting surprises around every corner.
Nowadays, it's possible to make a video game that looks more or less photorealistic, or even completely hand-drawn, just like Gurney's art. So that means it's time for someone to make a new Dinotopia game, and you know what? They can still use these puppets.